Hello and welcome back. We just took off from New York's LaGuardia Airport with the default Beach Baron 58 in X-Plane 11. And today I want to show you the beautiful Drzewiecki design New York City scenery. I flew a flight from Boston to LaGuardia yesterday with the FlyJSim 727, made the runway 13 approach. Had a sneak preview of what the scenery looks like, but today I want to fly VFR over the New York City area, giving you a nice overview of what the Drzewiecki design scenery of New York City does. And well, just to start off from, I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's amazing. That is one, as long as you look at it from a distance. I will show you later in the video if you come real close to some of the smaller buildings. They're not all, well, very, sometimes the finishing seems a bit rough. Windows that are not water, how do you say that? They're not completely level. Sometimes well, we'll just look into it. But anyway, the overall feel is that it is an amazing scenery. It's well worth the money if you like to fly over the city. It has a lot of distinctive features of the well, features the distinctive landmarks of the New York area, of course. With the Manhattan area, well, it's just jaw-droppingly nice. Especially the high-rise buildings, they are incredibly nicely modeled, quite detailed as well. As soon as you come to the lower buildings, they're just, well, some scenery fill, and they don't always look very nice, but I will see if I can make a low pass through the city so you can see what I mean. So if you look at it real close, you might have some doubts about it, but if you are flying helicopters, if you are flying GA aircraft and you like to fly over heavy urbanized areas, I can only recommend this scenery wholeheartedly. It's really, well, I think it's amazing. As you can see now, there are a huge amount of 3D objects in here because I will give you a quick show of my graphic settings. So texture is maximum, not unlimited. Anti-aliasing 4, number of world objects max, and reflection details minimum. We can check out what the reflection detail does to the image of the sim, but also to the performance later on. I will switch it on then. That might, well, that will reload the sim, I think, but as you can see with the number of world objects set to the highest level, I have about, well, say low to mid 30 frame per seconds. If I move the slider of world objects one position to the left, so not completely maxed out, I'm having well over 50 frames per second over this scenery. So I think all in all, that's a very, very nice performance if you consider what you're getting from it. Now I didn't turn on the track real world time, so what we can do is show you the scenery in different stages of lighting. So I will just adjust the light now. So this is what the scenery looks like at night. Well, I think it's quite impressive to look at the, well, the most prominent buildings, the high rise. That's extremely nice done. But then the scenery fill in the middle, that's, well, not as detailed, of course, but I think there's quite a large contrast between, well, let's say lower Manhattan with these buildings and then all this. You would expect some lights on off in here, so but I understand that it's quite hard to make the entire area look like this because, well, of course, from the high rise there are enough photographs available that you can use. From all the buildings in between there isn't, so I think I understand why they did it this way. And all in all, it's still well, I have the feeling of flying over a very, very heavily populated area, which of course New York City is. Um, and especially if you compare this to the default New York scenery in X-Plane 11, well, this is jaw-droppingly nice. It's incredible. The amount of buildings of 3D objects is huge. And it's not just Manhattan, it's the area surrounding it as well. The area towards Newark is very heavily densely populated. The area till JFK is also very heavily populated with 3D objects. I think if you would fly the Canarsie approach into these runways down here, it's it's quite a spectacular experience. And of course, well, the explained night lighting system, well, that's already nice in itself. And well, so if we make it a little bit later, I like to fly at dawn. By the way, the skies is SkyMaxx Pro V4.5. So if you're saying, well, I have somewhat different sky colorings going on than in the default X-Plane 11. With the SkyMaxx Pro, if you set the SkyMaxx Hosek Wilkie Sky model, you have a sky model that gives a much larger area with the colors of the skies. The color of the skies are more natural, I think. So that's quite a big improvement. So we make it slightly later again, so we have some of the morning sun on the buildings. There we are. This looks nice. There's one thing that I noticed, however, is that the reflection of the sun on the water isn't exactly in line with the position of the sun. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but at least in the Netherlands it usually is more in line. I don't know if that's an X-Plane thing or a SkyMaxx thing, but maybe one of the developers, if they ever watch this video, can look into it. Now, as you can see, we have gained a lot of altitude in the meanwhile, so let's just reduce some thrust. And at this altitude we have a nice overview of the area. You see all the 3D objects, the trees in between, the bridges, of course, some of the main landmarks in the New York area. Now LaGuardia Airport again. So let's just make a turn here. I think this is the, I'm not very familiar in New York, but I think this is the, this might even be the Harlem area. I thought that was in this part, but I'm not really sure, so I'm not going to mention any city names or anything like that. So let's just fly down these blocks of buildings and see what they look like. And this is what I meant. If you are getting close to these blocks and you look at them in detail, they're not always well, very nice. There seem to be some rough edges on it. But when you look at it from a distance, the effect that they create is incredible. So I think this really is a scenery to fly over. I think it will be nice if you fly helicopters. I can't fly helicopters, so I'm not doing that. But to fly to and from the platforms on buildings if they are there. So let's just see. There are some helipads included, so that's nice. I think you can make some spectacular helicopter flights in here, but of course it's also very nice to take a light stunt aircraft and zigzag between the buildings, underneath the bridges. I mean, you can have a Red Bull air race in this scenery and it will be quite spectacular. Now this is what I was talking about. This is just basically black blocks with, well, as you can see, it's this is what I mean with rough edges. It's not very sharp. It's cut out from a photo, I think. But well, so if you look at it at this level, it's not always very nice. But if you zoom out and gain some altitude and you just overlook the area, it's incredible. It really, really is very, very nice. I've also included the Drzewiecki Design New York Airport, so I will fly, let's fly to JFK now. And the New York airports, well, of course, the airport buildings and all, they are very nice, but there isn't any traffic parked at the gates. There's no ground vehicles moving. So although the buildings look extremely nice, there isn't a lot of life in the airport, if you understand what I mean. I mean, if you take Mr. X KSFO, for instance, it's freeware. And it has tons of ground vehicles moving around, a lot of airplanes parked at the gates. And the New York airport's scenery by Drzewiecki design is payware, and it has only the buildings, and they look amazingly nice. I mean, it's a huge improvement over the default X-plane, so no hard feelings for that. But I think it would be nice if there was a little bit more life included in the airports. If you look at this, the amount of 3D objects generated by the AutoGen is incredible. And I'm not really sure how much of this is AutoGen and how much is Drzewiecki design, so don't pin me on that, but at least it looks amazing. And I think you will hear that word quite a lot in this video. Of course, we're now flying towards sea, so the performance starts to rise because there's a lot less objects to load in over the horizon. Let's just put down the nose a little bit because this is a bit steep. Now, by the way, this video is purely for showing off scenery, so it's not about good and nice flying. It's just busting around the area to show you what you get when you get the Drzewiecki design New York scenery, maybe the New York airport scenery. If you have your system settings on high, this is what you get with SkyMaxx Pro v4.5 for the sunlight. I think this is pretty amazing, a very nice picture. Of course, New York, founded by Dutchmen, and then some idiot found it a good idea to trade it for Suriname. And well, I think if he had a device that could make him look into the future, he would have thought twice before making that deal. But at the time it was pretty nice because there were lots of how do you call that? There was a lot of valuable material in the ground in Suriname. And there wasn't much in New York, or New Amsterdam as it was called back then. But well, looking back on it, it was quite a bad deal. But anyway, here we are approaching the JFK airport. I think if you fly the Canarsie approach, then you have to fly with the runway to your left and then make a last minute turn for final for the runways. If you do that with this scenery installed on these settings, I can only imagine what a fantastic sight that must be, flying one of the heavies into these runways. Runway 13 left or 13 right, it is. So this is JFK in the Drzewiecki design New York airport scenery. Like I said, it looks amazing if you look at the well, buildings, runways, taxiways, roads, you name it. But once you are down on the ground, there are no airplanes, and there are some airplanes, but just a couple. And there isn't very much of ground equipment moving around the area, so this doesn't give the feel of a lively airport, being one of the busiest of the New York area. So let's just fly a circle over JFK. The landmark tower, of course. So let's just make a circle and then fly straight towards Newark. So we'll just fly a triangle for all the airports, the major airports in the area. Overfly Manhattan again, try to make a low pass through that scenery like I said earlier in the video. And then I think it's back for landing on one of the airports. I think it will be LaGuardia again. But look at this, guys, and look at the performance. It's high 30s, mid to high 30s, low 40s. And that's plenty to have a smooth sim experience. But that's with the default airplane. If you fly here with the more heavy payware add-on aircraft, that performance will be lower. I don't think I will have to try to fly around like this with the IXEG 737. That's quite heavy. But basically, for VFR flying, the stock airplane that ship with X-Plane 11, they are not bad. They're quite good actually, and they look quite nice. The reason that I took the Beach Baron is because we have some distance to cover over this terrain, and with the Cessna 172 that would take well, maybe twice as long. So that's why for the VFR videos this plane is my favorite. It's a nice balance between decent speed, nice flight handling characteristics, and it's included in X-Plane 11 when you buy it, so anyone can fly with this. If you have X-Plane 11, that is, of course. But this is, well, basically what X-Plane 11 can give you. If you have decent hardware, that is, of course. And bear in mind that I have an i7 6700K. I bet that if you have an i7 7700K, the performance will be even better. Now, I think this will be a nice point in the video to just accelerate the time to see what the scenery looks like at different times of day. So let's just make it later. Sun are starting to rise. So it's almost midday now. And we'll just continue to do this till the sun starts setting again, and we'll fly towards the sunset. And again, the mismatch between the sun and the reflection on the water. But I'm not really sure, well, maybe I can try it now. See if that works if I set the reflections detail to maximum, see if that helps. It doesn't, but it takes a huge chunk out of the frame rate. It costs you 10 frames. But we are still mid-20s. So let's just see how this goes and how it looks if we do this. I don't know what this object is doing right here, but it seems to be somewhat out of place. It's not positioned very well, judging by the looks of it. I think this, well, I don't know where it is in real life, but it's standing right over the streets there, so the position isn't that good. So let's just make it a little bit earlier again, see what happens to the reflections. So Statue of Liberty. explore some of the ferries. I think we are now approaching Newark. Let's just see. Yeah, Newark Liberty International. There we are. So let's overfly Newark as well, and then we'll head back to the Manhattan area. Basically, I've set the real-world weather on, so it's quite a nice day in New York, judging by the looks of it. No clouds, no rain. Now, also one of the things that I really like in X-Plane, when you pay attention to the details, traffic on the motorways or highways or freeways or whatever you like to call them travels faster than the traffic that drives around the streets. So it's one of these tiny details that makes it look quite quite realistic. Looks like we're flying over a huge railway emplacement here. Now, and I know the title of the video says VFR, but that's just to state that I'm just doing some busting around the area. Of course, I'm not in this video maintaining required altitudes, keep to airspace limitations, etc. It's just flying over the terrain. I know that I'm flying in a lot of places that you're not allowed to fly with the small general aviation aircraft in real life, but that's not the purpose of the video. The purpose is to show off scenery, to show you what you get if you buy it. And that means breaking some aviation rules, of course. Well, here we are over Liberty Newark, or Newark Liberty Airport. And just as in JFK, the buildings, the roads, everything looks amazing. It's just a bit empty. That's a bit of a pity, I think. But maybe there are some add-ons to be downloaded to give it a bit more livelihood to it. But I haven't looked into that yet. So let's just increase the altitude slightly. And then we'll just fly back to the Manhattan area. Let's just fly from lower Manhattan up to Central Park and beyond. think what I will do is fly up north along this side of the Hudson and then fly south again and then back up north to LaGuardia, because that will also give you a good overview of what is on this side of the Hudson. And again, I'm not really sure whether this is Drzewiecki design scenery in here or that this is just the normal autogen, but well, doesn't really matter. It just looks amazing. Especially, of course, with the Drzewiecki design buildings in there, giving it the famous skyline that really adds to this entire area. So even if Drzewiecki is only the Manhattan area, it also affects everything around it. If you look towards it, you just have a much nicer, far more realistic image of this area. And I think that's what you are looking for in payware scenery. And that's also why I think Drzewiecki Design's New York City is worth the money, despite the fact that, of course, well, it's not completely perfect, but it's almost perfect in my opinion. So just my 2 cents. If you are in doubt of buying this, I can only recommend you to do so. Do look into the system specifications. Do not know what they ask for this in order to make it run, but I wouldn't do this on a very slow processor. I think these reflections, they took out quite a chunk. We'll see reflections in here under that bridge. So let's see what happens if I lower the settings. Is that gone then? Because if it isn't, I think it isn't worth the extra frame rates. Yeah, now it is gone. So it does add something. But we can also set it to high. Well, that doesn't really affect frames. The difference between high and maximum is almost nothing. So let's just set it to max then. Of course, the Empire State Building, Freedom Tower, the World Trade Center towers. The United Nations office building is on the other side of Manhattan, I thought. If you want to ditch an Airbus in the Hudson like Captain Sully did, this will give you some nice backgrounds when you do that. And this is on the other side of the Hudson, if you look at this scenery. Well, anyone who's still saying that X-Plane isn't a mature sim yet, I say think again, because I think it has matured very nice over the past few years with X-Plane 11. Well, if you've never tried X-Plane, just go for it. I can only stress that out. It's an amazing sim. And with a lot more people using it right now, we have a lot more developers coming on board, so do give it a try. And of course, a lot of people use both prepared and X-Plane. X-Plane usually for the GA airplanes, and prepared for the heavy metal stuff. But I only use X-Plane, and like I say, also for the heavy metal stuff, you quite good in X-Plane. We have some pretty nice add-ons. Just look at this. It is so incredibly nice. So anyway, let's just reduce some thrust. Start, make a right-hand turn now. See if we can do some low-level flying between those buildings. Another nice detail is that the cars have headlights and backlights, and the headlights are white and the backlights are red, so you can actually see which way the traffic is moving by just looking at the lights. And every now and then you have an emergency vehicle moving through. You have blue flashlights. That's also a nice touch, I think. So let's just take a look from the inside for a minute. I'm using Track IR, by the way, so that's why you have all the movement in your screen now. I can just move my head and look around, bend forward, bend backward, anything. It's quite nice for VFR flying. I think it's a must. I think it's the next best thing to virtual reality. Of course, virtual reality is still in the early stages now, but I think that will take a huge flight in the future, especially for flight simming. It's incredibly nice because with virtual reality you can actually get a lot more feeling into the virtual flying, which is of course very nice. So let's just fly across here, see if that works. Oops. And then you might have some good views on the other buildings that are in there that are like hidden. And this is what I'm talking about, the basically the fill objects. They're just black shapes actually. They're not really looking like buildings. So if you fly at this level, it's not always very impressive, but as soon as you reach the end of this street and you get the high rise, it's again everything is in high detail. And when you look at this part of the city from a distance, well, it does look nice. But this is basically Drzewiecki design New York City scenery. This is what you get from that. So let's just fly over the MetLife building. Let's gain some altitude. We don't want to hit it. Jump over it, and then before we stall, lower the nose. And here we are again with the Empire State Building. And let's fly to the lower Manhattan area, gain some altitude, and let's look from the outside, because I think the movement of Track IR in a video isn't very nice. And I don't want to make you people sick, so... One more circle around Lower Manhattan, then up north and back to LaGuardia for landing, and that will be this flight for today. I hope I gave you a good impression of what the Drzewiecki design New York scenery looks like. Let's just alter the time a little bit more. The reflections, of course, in all the glass of the towers, that is quite nice. I don't know if it's X-Plane 11.02 public beta 1 thing, but I'm having these the jaggy lines again with the especially with the moon. Don't really like that. So I hope Laminar can look into that, or it might be in a SkyMaxx Pro thing. I'm not sure which of the two it is, but let me just show it to you in a minute. Complete this turn. So now, of course, if you fly here like this in real life, you'll probably get shot down when you are over the water again. So if I make it later again, here, this is what I mean with the jaggy lines. See what I mean? That's the only weak spot in X-Plane 11 so far. They solved it for a while back, just prior to the official 11.0 release. So I'm not really sure why it's back, but it's definitely one of the lesser aspects of this sim. And again, I'm not really sure if it's an X-Plane 11 thing or a SkyMaxx Pro V4.5 thing. So let's just fly under that bridge. I think that's quite nice. Stunting with the Baron. It's a simulation. We can do anything we like, as long as we don't crash. So here we go. Of course, if you have a light stunt aircraft, this is a lot of fun flying under bridges, over bridges, do loopings, zigzag around high-rise buildings, etc. And just look at the reflection of the lights in the water. This is quite nice, guys. This is why you have reflection settings maxed out and why it's eating some frames. But it looks incredibly nice. Imagine landing a sail or a float plane in here. Must be awesome. So back from the outside again. So we have LaGuardia runway 13 coming up. I think I will land just on that runway, or try to at least. And that will conclude the video. So I hope you liked it. I hope I gave you a good impression of what the New York city scenery by Drzewiecki Design looks like. And I hope I pronounced their name correctly, but that's the only way that I can think of on how to pronounce it. Anyway, I will put in a link to the xplane.org store where you can buy the scenery package. It's, I think it's an incredibly nice add-on, and it's worth every penny of it. Especially if you like flying VFR over, or like I said, helicopter, stunt aircraft. There's lots of possibilities in here to do very, very nice things. Not that much of an aerobatics pilot, but if you are, we'll see the videos of an air race. Let's gain some altitude. We're too low, way too low. And now we're high again. Oof. Well, anyway, this was the video. Hope you liked it. Just slammed her into the ground like an aircraft carrier. But, well, like I said, hope you liked it. If you have any questions, comments, tips, tricks, whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section. Hope I gave you a nice impression of the scenery and that this helps you make a decision on whether to buy it or not. So, hope to see you next time. Bye bye.